Hello, married
Hey.
people and maybe not married people. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. I'm Jason. This is my wife Renee. We've been married forever, and we are not marriage experts, not marriage counselors. It's really going to show today during this session, probably. But we do really think that God's plan for marriage is the best, and you can have a fulfilling, exciting, awesome, purposeful marriage. But it won't happen accidentally. You will have to work at it. So what we've been doing is going through these books. We're halfway through. One's for men only, one's for women only. It's by Shanti and her husband Jeff Feldhan.
Yes.
Anyway, obviously this one is for you guys. This one is for you ladies. And we're just kind of skimming these chapters where we're not really able to take the time to dig deep into what they're saying. We just want to give you a highlight and hope that you will get these and invest some of your own time in this, because these are truly, I think, of all the books we've read over the years, the most insightful.
Yes.
And it will just help you get some insight into the way your spouse thinks, and that is super helpful. And today we are in the For Women Only book, and this is going to be awkward for some people. It's going to be a little off-putting for some people, but this chapter could be the thing that saves your marriage. Mm-hmm. This chapter is way more important than you think it is. This chapter is going to be awkward but powerful, and nobody wants to hear their pastor talk about sex, but here we go, right? We're going to talk about sex today because it's a huge part of marriage, and I want to just say a couple things before we jump into the For Women Only section on sex, and that is, there's a lot of people still today in the church that believe that sex belongs to the street, sex belongs to the devil, that it's for procreation only, and leave it alone. And I just want to say that that is such a lie from our enemy. Sex was not his idea, it was God's idea. Mm-hmm. From the beginning, this was God's idea, and he intends for it to be something that is enjoyed, and it is physiologically designed to bind you and your spouse together. That's the way he created it. So if he created it, he has a plan for it. And when you follow his plan for it, it is far better than the world could ever lie to you, tell you, or deceive you. And it will help just cement your marriage and your relationship together. But this is one of those things that also doesn't happen accidentally. You don't have a great sex life accidentally. You have to overcome a lot of obstacles in our culture about what culture says about sex. And you just have to press in, and you have to learn, and you have to allow this to be something that God blesses in your life, because he can and he will. Mm-hmm. So in the For Women Only section on sex, I think just right off the bat, let me say that if you're sitting there with your spouse and you think, oh, I already know. I know what my husband's thinking, and that is he wants to have sex every day, sometimes twice a day, and that's it. That's all there is to it, and I'll have to oblige or whatever. And the truth is that it's way more significant for the man than most wives are aware.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
Okay, so the chapter title, the little subtitle says Sex Changes Everything. And so it's just going to get into, for us as ladies, what this really means to our husband. Gives some great insight into what's happening behind the scenes as far as for a man's heart and just for his life in general. So the bottom line on this whole chapter for the ladies is that our sexual desire for our husband profoundly affects our husband in every area of his life. Forever, not just when you're first married. It's not something that just happens just at the beginning of marriage. We've been married almost 33 years, and we have enjoyed a very fulfilling sex life. It has had some ups and downs, and I think the longer you're married, you're going to find that. But this chapter is saying to the ladies, your desire for your husband sexually is extremely important.
I think there's a really important distinction there, and the word they use and the word you just used is really important, because what ladies tend to think is sex is important. But what their research is discovering is that your sexual desire for your husband is what's important.
Yeah.
There's a big difference there.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so the act of sex and our desire for our man is not just a physical need for our husband. It fills a powerful emotional need. And the book said, and I put a little exclamation point beside this because it said a man can't feel completely loved without it. And
yeah, can I read one of the sentences she wrote? She said, lack of sex is as emotionally serious to him as, say, his sudden silence would be to you. That's profound.
yeah. So in that little section of that chapter, it said, your man wants to be wanted by the wife.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to give us some benefits of sex, why it's so important to our husband, and it's going to give 2 wounds when sex is not given priority or is being withheld, or there's a problem, a physical problem in the marriage.
Before you go into those, can I just read this study that they just did, because I want to make sure we're saying the same thing, and what we're saying and what this book is saying, that ladies, your man needs you to want to have sex with him.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean every day or whatever your time schedule is. It's different for everybody. But what your man needs is for you to want to sexually fulfill him. And they did this survey, and listen to the question in the survey. With regard to sex, for some men, it is sufficient to be sexually gratified whenever they want. For other men, it's also important to feel wanted and desired by their wife. How important is it to you to also feel sexually wanted and desired by your wife? 97% of those who responded, the men who responded, said it's somewhat to very important. 2/3 said very important. 1/3 said somewhat important. So 97% of men, when it comes to sex, frequency is not the issue.
Right.
It's, I want my wife to desire me.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
It's big.
So I want to make sure you hear that, and now talk to us, if you don't mind. Why is that so important, and then what are the hurdles? What are the problems?
Okay, so the benefits we're going to give are why this is so important to a man to be desired by his wife. It creates this fulfilling sex life for the man. Makes him feel loved, makes him feel desired when his wife is acting like her man is the most important thing in her life. And that's what we've talked about over and over in these, all of these videos that we've done, that our marriage is our most valuable possession. You are the most valuable person in my life. You're the most important. And you feel the same way about me. And when that's acted upon, it's so fulfilling, especially for the man. This was very interesting, and part of this benefit, that men live with a deep sense of loneliness. You think about women have so many emotions and social connections that most men don't have, and this may not be every man, and this may be something way deep down that a man doesn't really think about that much, but there is a deep sense of loneliness for most men, and this kind of fulfilling sex in a committed marriage is one of the most purest forms of fulfillment for that
100%.
lonely feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
So that's benefit 1. Benefit 2 of a wife desiring her husband sexually, it gives him confidence. So it talked about that when the sex life is good at home, it gives the man power to face the world. He feels confident. He feels like he can face the day, and just has that deep confidence. So when this is not a fulfilling part of a man's life, the wife is not desiring him and is turning him down, and it's just not happening, there are 2 wounds that go really deep. And I think it's good for women to know this. Wound number one, it talked about in the book, is he feels incredible rejection if she doesn't want to. And it even talked about if she's just going through the motions and not really connected and not showing that she desires him, and just doing it even though she doesn't want to, he can tell, and it's really deeply hurtful.
That deep sense of rejection is a massive gaping wound in a lot of men's hearts.
Yeah.
And well, I think they said when the wife says no, you're not in our heart, in our mind, you're not saying no to the sex act, you're saying no to us as a human being.
Yeah.
And that is a profound thing that, ladies, you need to know, that you have so much power in that area. To when you reject that, just understand that your man is not hearing you reject having sex. He's hearing you reject him and everything he is.
It's very personal.
So wounding.
Yeah. So that's wound number one. Wound number two is your lack of desire for him as the wife can actually send him into a depression. It causes lack of confidence if it's over a period of time. Causes them to just withdraw because they don't know what else to do, and could send them into a depression. So there was something that we thought we might read in that section on page 121 that it was just a man's showing his heart about this.
So one of the responders to some of their questions said, "We've been married a long time. I deeply regret and resent the lack of intimacy of nearly any kind for the duration of our marriage." This is the man talking.
Yeah.
"I feel rejected, ineligible, insignificant, lonely, isolated, and abandoned as a result. Not having the interaction I anticipated prior to marriage is like a treasure lost, and it is irretrievable. It causes deep resentment and hurt within me. This in turn fosters anger and feelings of alienation." That's real.
Yeah.
This man has been told no for so many years. He's just a shell of a man.
Yeah. So I don't want women to hear us say, ladies, you can never turn your man down. You can never say no.
That is not the point.
That is not what we're talking about. You know, when after you've been married for quite a while, we can look back and see we've had a lot of seasons. Like there have been some ups and downs, kind of like the 4 seasons of the year. There's winter, there's summer when it's exciting. Winter is when it's a little bit cold and hard. You're just going through a hard time, or maybe there's a health issue that you're needing to work out. Spring and then fall. There's something unique about each season, but I think when you realize you are going to go through ups and downs and seasons in the sex life of a marriage, that's normal. So I think it's good to just realize that and maybe think and talk about it so that you can figure out, well, what season do you think we're in right now that could be the cause if there is a problem. So it says, if you are experiencing a hard season, or if you have found yourself, this is something that you've never talked about, and maybe you've been married for a long time or only a short time, and you are in a sexless marriage. You have just decided to let it go.
And there's a huge percentage of marriages that's their classification. We haven't had sex in years. It's just not a part of our marriage. And I think you're missing out on something that God intends to be a part of marriage.
Yeah.
100%.
It's a huge gift.
And your spouse is your only legitimate sexual outlet.
Yeah.
As far as God is concerned.
Yeah, so I think we could say it's not too late if you
Absolutely.
find yourself in that place. And it's going to be some work to get back to it. But it just lists some stuff of what can we do if we find ourselves in a hard season, or if we've just come to a place, we've been married long enough that we've just stopped. It says for the wife that I need to choose to love my husband the way he needs to be loved. And this was such a tender part in the book, that when a man and woman have their fulfilling sex life, that the woman is actually, that she needs to think about that she is touching his heart every time that is fulfilled for him. there is a very tender heart behind all that manly testosterone, it's said in the book, that you're actually touching the heart of your man, and it's a huge, huge thing. And it even spoke of, there are seasons when the kids are young and it's so busy, and busy seasons of life where you are exhausted. By the time it's nighttime and the kids are in bed, you really don't have much energy left, and it's going to speak to that in a second. But if your answer is not tonight or not now, to be so reassuring and loving and affirming instead of just no and turning over.
Yeah.
You've got to be careful because you are dealing with your man's heart. This one I love. This is a great, just a great little piece of advice that I think we had read this many years ago, and I can look back and think we took this to heart, and we have done some things that has just added so much fun to our sex life. And we had to get creative, and we had to read and learn. I had to go to the doctor and get some help. But just, it said for a woman, get involved and have more fun.
You wrote that in giant letters on your note page there.
Because
and
it's
a
so
giant
important.
section in this book. Have more fun.
Yeah.
It should be fun.
That's what God intended.
100%.
And that little part, I put this, and we were laughing about this earlier, that a passive...
I want to say it. The old saying is happy wife, happy life. And that's very, very true.
Yeah.
But passive wife, boring life when it comes to sex.
Yeah.
Hear that, ladies? Passive wife, boring life.
So don't let that give you any pressure, but just get creative. I mean, we've talked about before in some of our other videos, get some fun lighting, dress for your man, read some things that help you be creative
There
together.
are some great, books about your sex life that are from a Christian perspective.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Ed and his wife, Something Young, in Dallas. They wrote The Sex Experiment. It's
Yeah.
a great, great book. Check it out. The Sex Experiment by Ed Young.
Yeah.
Super
And
helpful.
Don't be afraid to just try some new things.
Yeah.
So this one is big too, that if you need help, like me, I had to go to the doctor and get some things checked because I just was not feeling like myself and feeling good, and I knew I wasn't able to help you in the way I needed to help you because I had read this book. So I got help. So if you need help, if it's counseling, if it's a doctor, do that, and do that as a gift for your husband.
It's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. So it says, this was really interesting. This speaks to couples that have young children, and there's just a lot going on. There's a lot you have to take care of, and it's hard to have enough energy and to give sex a priority in your life. But that's what this said, to make sex a priority. And this woman shares her story of, she felt like it was really important that the kids were clean all the time, and that the house was immaculate, and they had amazing dinners, and everything had to be perfect. She kind of fell into the perfectionist category, and she realized, is that more important to my husband? Is it so important to my husband that all be happening, and then there's nothing left of me by the end of the day to give anything to my husband? And after she had read this and understood this, she kind of changed her mindset, and she let some things that maybe weren't quite so important go a little bit, and relaxed a little bit about that, so that she could make this part of their marriage a priority. What a huge gift.
Huge gift.
To give to her husband. So it says reevaluate your priorities. If you're in a busy season, that's not going to be forever, is it?
Right, that's for sure. Yeah.
So it said, get the love signals right. So it asked this question, and this is something I think our ladies just need to ponder. It says, has your husband been sending you signals that he's unhappy about the responsiveness of you in the marriage sexually?
Yep. I would say, just in closing, that if this is a conversation that you have not had as a married couple, whether you've been married a month or 20 years, it's time. If you haven't had this conversation, and if it's awkward for you to sit down and talk about it, figure out a better way.
Yeah.
Write an email.
Yeah.
Some of our conversations about sex have been email, where you get a chance to just kind of process and think. Text, a phone call, whatever, but figure out what works for you, and understand, ladies, the power that you have and how significant, not the sex act, but the whole thing of desire and your sex life. It's so significant to your husband. It's bigger than just having sex.
Yes.
It's a big deal. That's why Paul said that sex is a mystery. It's beyond a physical act. It's something bigger than that. Anyway, that's it.
We did it.
We did it. All right. And I haven't read forward, but I assume that next week in the men's book is probably going to be your perspective
I think so.
on the old sex life.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.